Had it been a week? 3? She had lost track. One of the most populous cities in America, and she had yet to see a single soul besides herself. Ashla was a bit hazy on some of the details of when this all had come about, of how and why the world had blossomed into this bizarre, barren landscaping, but she did recall her initial reaction of pure panic. She remembered quite clearly the act of running around to all of the places where co-workers, friends, and even family were supposed to be. Queens, the Bronx, Eastern Long Island, eventually here, in Manhattan. There was no one. Oh, everything worked all right. Subways, cars, machinery, all of it as if the regular occupants of the world would return any moment to pick up and go on just as they always had. Only there were some strange details missing. There was no television reception or projection. Light bulbs, neon lights, and anything providing the smallest glimmer of illumination refused to perform their designated functions. That had truly freaked her out in the beginning. The lack of light had made the vast vacant spaces of the city seem somehow claustrophobic and paralyzing. It had gotten better, thank goodness, as her eyes had adapted to the total darkness with a surprising rapidity. She had even grown accustomed to the fact that it always remained nighttime and never turned to day like it should. Things had definitely improved once she stopped thinking of reasons why there might not be a sun. Another odd thing was the food. Food was always fresh for the taking, somehow replenishing itself as though invisible workers still carried out their daily duties of stocking and rotating it. She never saw any of it happen. It just did. In the end, she had realized that the ideal course of action was to not spend too much time thinking about the details. She never got answers when she did, and only managed to scare herself witless in the process. Explanations escaped her for those and many other anomalous details, but she was weary of the constant heart-racing panic that overwhelmed her every time she thought too hard about her shadowed environs. Instead, she learned to enjoy things, like foods she'd never tried before, or sneaking into homes in Chinatown just to see how different they were. There was one light, however, moonlight. It was the one and only relief to the dark world. The growing cycle of the moon, with its inevitable turn toward fullness, would shed more and more beautiful pale light onto the world around her. Ashla didn't even mind all the spooky shadows it cast in long black and gray streaks. She already knew no one was hiding in them. In fact, her reality remained completely devoid of humanity, just as it had for the better part of a month now. 2 months? More? Even time seemed to have given up on this lifeless wasteland that made no sense to her. She supposed she had given up as well, eventually trudging away from the overwhelming grief over lost loved ones, and even abandoning her furious frustration at her suddenly senseless world. Now she simply wandered New York and the rest of the tri-state area, trying to amuse herself. Until then, she had never realized how vital the presence of others could be to a person's sanity. It had actually been fun for a little while, walking paths and places that were normally so heavily protected by security or warning signs, and examining all the strange inner workings of things she'd never questioned before. At least, it had been fun until she had taken a bad fall in a subway station, and it had occurred to her that if she were hurt very badly, there would be no one around to help her. No one to rush her to a hospital for care. No one to care enough to keep her from rotting away from hunger and thirst alone in a dark, tiled tunnel. She hadn't gone below ground since that particular panic attack. Above ground might not necessarily be less hazardous, but it was far less enclosing, and she took comfort in whatever she could at that point. Ashla's sense of security on the open streets was relative. She was safe from dark, creepy subterranean dangers, perhaps, but she was also left feeling even more alone as towering buildings soared above her, miniaturizing her and making her feel as though she were standing at the bottom of a great abandoned canyon. She had struggled with the ever-increasing fear that someday something might happen, and she wouldn't know what to do to help herself. And then sometimes, some very awful bad times, she couldn't even remember all